Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here from the webcast1live.com studios in downtown Des Moines, Iowa, coming as always every 6:30 to 7:30, bringing you the perspectives you love from the sides you hate. With me across the table is the captain of my Walt Whitman-esque ship, and you know what that means, wink wink, Dr. Pat Bertroche. Doc, what's up?
Not much. How's everybody doing out there? I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Thanks for coming by, checking us out. Make sure you go hit docandlefty.com as well as our Facebook page, because we have been getting all kinds of action on Facebook here lately. So
we've been trying.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been having some beautiful weather.
Yep.
And the studio is freezing cold.
Love it.
Oh,
I love it. I sweated up today, so I had to go to Forest City to do some stuff, and I just stopped back at home because I got home around back to Des Moines around 4 o'clock. So I stopped at the house, changed my clothes, put a sweater on, and I couldn't be more comfortable.
Well, good. I'm glad you're comfortable today.
Love it.
Because that's the second time you've knocked around my nobody can look at my face and admire it if the camera is bouncing up and down over there.
I haven't done anything to your camera.
Right there. Mine's right there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh.
That is what a liberal does. They sabotage you. What do you think, DJ Maggie G?
Yeah.
She says, yeah.
I suppose a true liberal wouldn't apologize for it, so maybe.
Oh, well, that's probably true.
Yeah.
And speaking of liberals, guess what those dastardly liberals have done in Idaho?
I don't know what you're talking about.
These poor people who are pastors. This city in Idaho has passed an ordinance that says if pastors don't marry a gay couple, that they will be held in contempt and may face possible jail time.
Well, that's not exactly what the ordinance says.
So what does the ordinance say?
Well, the ordinance basically says that places of public accommodation, other types of like public spaces, things of that nature, can no longer discriminate on the basis of sexual identity. Just like Iowa's civil rights statute says that that employers can't fire you for being gay in the state. That's very common around the state. I don't know if I wouldn't expect Idaho State Legislature to pass something like that, but this city passed an ordinance saying that certain entities can no longer discriminate against people for being homosexual. Part of the thing being to facilitate in some capacity same-sex marriage. This I think it's called the Hitching Post, is a Christian corporation.
Yes,
such that has been recognized by the Hobby Lobby decision at this point. But they are, and what's been kicked up is that they are a one-man, one-woman marriage emporium that won't marry same-sex couples. They've been sued under, I suppose, the Idaho civil rights statute at this point, or maybe just sued. Like I said, I don't know the Idaho code at all, but the article that you pointed me to on Fox News says that they've been sued and that they're afraid of getting fined or going to jail because, as the city attorney of this town pointed out, that this is why it's so misleading. Folks, this is a for-profit company. This isn't a church that's being gone after here. So if you're going to First Methodist or Hope Lutheran out in West Des Moines, or if you're going to Antioch Baptist Church up the street from my place, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a for-profit business that's being interpreted as a place of public accommodation, and that would be subject to a city ordinance. A church still wouldn't be. So a for-profit business is being asked to comply with the same law that every other for-profit business is being asked to comply with.
Yeah, but don't you think that's, I mean, here it is, this big, long battle, and it's Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, a bastion, apparently, of liberalism.
Yeah, who knew that Idaho would have...
Who would have thunk?
It's the Austin of Idaho, I guess.
Absolutely. But, here are these pastors out there. Well, they're retired. They're just making some extra money on the side. So here they come along, and they're pastors, and now they're being forced to marry people that they don't agree with. It would be like,
Why aren't they in a church then?
Well,
that's the difference. You can't have it both ways. You can't perform religious ceremonies that are have been confined by law and the Constitution to a religious space, and also then turn around and say, actually, we're going to make a whole bunch of money for profit on this.
Well, but it would be like the Little Brown Church here in Iowa, up in wherever it was. My best friend, Scott Reed, got married up there. Mm-hmm. So if a gay couple went up there to Little Brown Church, it's actually a church.
Are they they're with a congregation and a minister?
They do have a congregation.
And apparently. A minister? And is that minister the one saying that you can't marry gay people up there?
Yeah, I think so.
And are they for,
I'm just saying,
hold
on. Let me back up.
That's the whole point.
But I don't know if he said he's not going to marry gay people or not. I want to make that clear. Well, I'm trying to use that as an example.
Right, but also if these folks are set up, and here's the issue why the alarmist guy that wrote the article, Todd Starnes, and the one that I was reading anyway, is forgetting his very recent history. We now live in a country where corporations have religious liberty, where corporations can assert religious liberty. And I've got to think that if you're going to, first of all, the idea that this would be a criminal statute of any kind is ludicrous to me. If you're going to have a civil rights statute that doesn't allow discrimination for race, ethnicity, sex, sexual orientation, all the rest of that stuff, that's your legislature decides that's all well and good. We're not debating that here, the efficacy of those kinds of statutes. We're not saying that it's the right thing to do and should be free, at least I hope not, that people can discriminate based on those things and not let you eat at the restaurant or kick you out for whatever reason if it's a place of public accommodation, private establishments, clubs, that sort of thing. But let me just make this point, we'll go to break. But those situations in Iowa are not criminal situations. You go,
and this appears
to be from the article, but there are a lot of problems there that I have with the article, just in its tone and how it's reporting things.
Well, it goes to, first of all, the ordinance says it goes to fines. They don't pay the fines, and they can be jailed. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty run of the mill for a statute of that.
It was right.
It would be like if I didn't pay my parking tickets. At some point, they go, listen, we're going to throw you in a clink until you pay them. Some sort of civil contempt. If it is a criminal statute, I don't think it's constitutional, especially in the light of the Hobby Lobby decision. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is if this pastor couple had formed a corporation, they'd be set.
Well, they did form a corporation. My point is this. If you're going to come up pre-Hobby Lobby, I would have said, if you're going to marry people and you're going to have a business doing it, you have to marry everybody that comes. It would be the same exact kind of thing as if an interracial couple came and asked to get married, and you said, my Christian beliefs do not allow me to marry people of different races. That's conceivable. I'm not saying that's a practicing thing in Christianity. Yes, it's a conceivable thing. But post Hobby Lobby now, this business could say we're a business. We have a long-standing business-related religious objection to same-sex marriage. We shouldn't be forced to do it, and it's a violation of our First Amendment. I kind of think that would be consistent with Hobby Lobby at this point, and the city ordinance would be unconstitutional. I'm not saying that the city ordinance as constructed is wrong in its is ethically wrong. I'm saying it's probably unconstitutional given the Hobby Lobby decision.
All right. We're going to be back right after this break. We have Sam Clovis going to be joining us a little bit later in the show. I think next up, there's a couple of questions we got today on Facebook about the deployment of our troops, whether it's constitutional, what they're doing in Africa, being exposed to Ebola without hazmat suits versus why aren't we using those very same troops with ISIS? So we're going to come
being
back
exposed to rockets and things.
Yes, because you can't put on a suit heavy enough to avoid a rocket. That's for sure. So we're going to be back right after this break. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We want to thank all of our sponsors, Dr. Lee Heeb, Heeb2014.org. She's really pulling well. Yeah. She's pulling better than Hatch. Which is amazing.
I'll have a question about that when we come back.
All right. And then Bertrosian Associates, Lubinas Law Firm, Halo Capital, Des Moines Anesthesia at 515-574-6442. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and all kinds of other stuff. And visit us at docandlefty.com. I do have a blog up there called Ebola, everything you need to know about contrasting President Obama's response to H1N1 to Ebola. We'll be back right after this break.
Petrosian Associates, how can I help you?
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. We got our little kind of throat clearing, and I always like to have a conversation that touches on the Constitution every once in a while. Especially, I think the landscape for religious or corporations with religious views, religious protected views, and same-sex marriage could be kind of interesting in the years to come. But we got that out of the way, and you'd mentioned something about Dr. Hebe. Who is a very nice person who I enjoy talking to a lot, said that she's polling greatly. And maybe it would be better to ask her this question, but if you've been in touch there, the River to River, one of my favorite Iowa public radio programs I listen to every single day, recently, I believe on Wednesday of last week, did little snippet interviews with a bunch of third-party candidates from around the state, and including a couple of independent candidates running for Senate, and also mentioned the Libertarian candidate for Senate, the doctor who tragically passed away.
Yes.
Not one mention of Dr. Hebe running for governor. I'm wondering why that is.
It's... It's
a bad question to ask you. I'm sure you don't know, but we can talk about it a little bit.
Well, we can. Obviously... Now, we've said this 100 times before. Branstad, despite his difficulty with public speaking, he's not the best speaker out there. But this guy knows politics. He knows when to strong arm and when to lead with a carrot. He knows politics. Mm-hmm. This guy's good at it. He's done it his whole life. And the bottom line is I think you and I both admitted way back when the Jack Hatch wasn't going to have a chance.
I kind of said that a bunch of times.
Yeah. And
when you pull your television advertising a month before the election, you're kind of in trouble.
Yes, a whole lot of trouble. And then from what I hear, I have a couple of friends in the Democratic Party. They were betting on Tyler Olson, right? And Tyler Olson, one, he started acting awful weird. And then two, he just went, well, I'm getting divorced, bye. And so that kind of sunk in Democrats' hopes.
Yep.
And I think a lot of those moderate Democrats and a lot of fiscal conservatives, but social liberals are going, instead of to Tyler Olson, are not going to Jack Hatch. They're going to Lee Hebe. Now, I was just trying to find the poll I saw just a little bit earlier this afternoon. And of course, I can't find it now. But it seemed to show that the numbers are off the top of my head. Jack Hatch at somewhere around 18%, Lee Hebe at 23%, and of course, the Gov up, I think they said 52%, something like that.
That seems a little high to me, but
52 for Branstad?
Yeah, I don't think he'd be beating Jack Hatch by like 30 points.
He just got done hitting the 50% mark because he hasn't hit the 50% mark the entire time he's been running. Mm-hmm. So the poll actually was Branstad breaks 50. That's what the poll was about, and it just happened to show other people behind. And of course, Tyler Olson is way back there at 1%, which is
weird,
amazing.
He's not on the ballot.
Oh yeah, liberals, they don't like to read. So,
I don't know if I don't know what kind of shot that was because he's not on the ballot. He's not even running.
I got the surprise lefty lucky. like this.
Why
and then,
would he
and then
even...
of course, DJ Maggie G is in the back going, "Oh man, I got another 45 minutes of this."
Well, what you've said just objectively doesn't make any sense.
Well,
but I'm going to go
I'm saying the 1% doesn't rate.
But here's another second question. We're going to talk about sort of how polls are breaking now. State election polls, especially Iowa, because Iowa's small in relation to the rest of the country, so we don't get a lot of polling. Even this year, where the Senate is up for grabs and everybody's is so hyped up about it.
Yeah.
This shows how close this race is, in my opinion. I want your thoughts on it. Quinnipiac poll, which is notoriously right-leaning, in my opinion, and the NBC Marist poll, I think they're together now, a little bit more left-leaning-ish, not as much as what like an MSNBC poll would be. NBC News is still pretty in the middle. Quinnipiac has the independents breaking for Braley. NBC has them breaking for Joni Ernst.
I think that's
isn't that weird?
Well, yeah. And this just shows you the problem with polls, because keep in mind, up until Mitt Romney got stomped, polls had Mitt Romney ahead, and that's
like one or two did, but the rest of them didn't.
Well, but still, but this is just the problem with polling. You're sitting here trying to take the pulse of the people, and the bottom line is, at this point, Americans are so sick and tired of the Republican and Democratic party machine BS that they're like, listen, I want to know this candidate. I want to know what they stand for. I want to know what they're going to do. Because if they're just going to go in there and do the same crap everybody else did, then why even bother? Right. And that's actually David Young's saving grace over in the 3rd district.
Well, no,
it's so conservative.
Well, I was going to completely disagree with anything saving grace about either Stacey Apple or David Young. There isn't any polling about that race that's been made public, because that's even a smaller race. However, everyone, all the news folks, like the Register folks, the Gazette folks in Cedar Rapids, all the political journalists that kind of follow this stuff for a living, are kind of in agreement that it's even closer, it's even tighter than the Senate race, and that the reason it's so tight is that I think a lot of the independents are sitting on their thumbs saying, you know what, I'm not going to early vote, I'm not going to do an absentee, I'm going to go to the voting booth and I'm going to flip a coin because they both stink. Now, that's not my view. I don't know either of the candidates.
David Young's great.
Did he ever come on the show? I don't think he did.
No, so he's not great.
And Stacey Apple is the one that seemed to have a lot of energy, but she had some poor performances in a couple of the debates.
Yeah.
The negative ads that have come out have been a little bit more sharp at her expense.
Yeah,
and who knows?
True.
But wouldn't it be funny? I mean, just from if the conservatives are having a problem with the machine, or even the independents having a problem with the machine, who's more of a machine? The guy that was Chuck Grassley's chief of staff for decades, or the one-term Iowa state representative who's married to a sitting Supreme Court justice?
Yes.
Who's more of an establishment person? It just doesn't make...
it doesn't do any good. We're going to be back right after this break. When we come back, we're going to discuss some constitutional issues, and we're going to discuss a little bit of Ebola. The subject is tiresome. I get it. It's fearful. But we have a couple of angles we're going to take on it. We'll be back right after this break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, here in a little bit, Sam Clovis is going to be joining us. Take it away, DJ Maggie G.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
See them here, see them there. You got bad credit? We don't care.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com. Visit emetroford.com today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We're going to talk about some questions that we got on the internet here in our next segment while we're waiting for a good... But you know what? You come on twice, you become a friend of the show.
Yes.
And I think that after last week, Sam Clovis desperately wants to be our friend. And I'll tell you, I know that you want to be his friend. I wouldn't mind being his, how's it put? A well-wisher. And that I don't wish him any particular harm of any of any sort. No, having Sam Clovis in front of the show would be great.
We're awful lucky we're surrounded with the people we do because,
yes,
I'm good at blowing names right and left. So
he thought my name was Adam for the first 6 months.
I did, and then I just thought it was idiot.
Yeah,
because he was liberal, and that's easy to remember. And then he kept having to tell me.
Yeah, and his grasp of the English language makes him think that idiot and Adam rhyme. I don't know.
Yep. Well,
it's one of those. It's a weird.
Anyway,
thing.
My apologies to DJ Maddie G. So I got that all mixed up. She's grinning at me now, turning red. That's always good.
Yep.
So we have one of the questions we were asked today is. Essentially, it boils down to, isn't it illegal or unconstitutional, if you would? That wasn't the question, but how come it's legal for President Obama to mobilize our National Guard and send them to Africa to fight Ebola? And of course, that's a good thing because one, these people that are going to our troops that are going over to fight Ebola don't even have proper hazmat suits. And just today, the CDC finally came out with new protocols to decontaminate from Ebola because you can't do it like you do regularly. You really have to go through a lot of steps because the stuff is everywhere and you don't need a lot to get sick. So the bottom line is, and this stuff is more potent, takes less of a viral load to transmit than smallpox does. 20 nurses were killed simply because a smallpox patient coughed out a window and it got sucked up 4 stories into these nurses' rooms and killed all 20 of them. That is how virulent smallpox is. Ebola is worse. Anyway, so the question is there anything that the state could do to prevent the deployment of their National Guard? And 2, is it constitutional? That's basically what the question asked. So I'm going to ask our resident constitutional scholar, Lefty.
Well, 1, it is constitutional. Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, that's the article and section that gives the president power over the military, expressly gives the power of the role of the commander-in-chief of the Army, Navy, and the militias of the several states when those militias are called up in actual service in the United States. There's also a series of laws passed by the Congress over 200 years, really. I think the first one was the Militia Act of 1797. That could be completely wrong, but it's around then. And then there's another, I think the law that reinforces that, I think it might be in 1903, where the president has the authority to mobilize the National Guard for service serving the United States as the commander-in-chief of the military, number 1. Number 2, there really isn't anything that the states or the governors could do to stop that, given the supremacy clause of the Constitution that gives the Constitution and all laws, or everything derived therefrom, supremacy over the several states. The federal government, even though we are a federal government where we have a national government and then the several state governments, the national Constitution takes precedence over everything. I understand I share the concern for sending any troops into harm's way, and certainly National Guard troops assisting in an Ebola epidemic in Africa, in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and I think it's in Guinea too now, those are the big 3.
Mm-hmm. Nigeria is now Ebola free.
Right, although, they beat it.
They did beat it.
They beat it.
Congo hasn't. There's still occasional outbreaks.
And so, that's always a concern, but I don't know that it's any more of a concern than sending them to Iraq and Afghanistan on numerous tours over the last 10 years, or sending them to Syria.
One of the questions, so now that we've established the constitutionality of it, is there anything a governor could do if he said, I don't want my boys deployed like that?
No.
So let's say...
Not my understanding of the statute. I mean, if you think about, I believe that governors can request. I think this is what happened in Katrina. The governor of Louisiana requested more National Guard from the other states and had to do it through a federal agency, the National Guard Agency or whatever it's called, and that's a federally administered group that handles those kinds of things. I mean, I can't imagine the governor is technically is the commander in chief of the state reserve or whatever.
Yep.
Right. And and you know this better than I do. But reserves and National Guard are different people.
Yes.
It's different things. And the state can call up its National Guard to do things in its state. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that it can't keep them away from the president, who has the power vested in the Constitution to send troops wherever he wants.
All right. Well, and then one of the questions, here's my thing. If you're going to send these troops to fight Ebola, you need to send these troops with hazmat suits and fully trained on how to prevent themselves from getting Ebola. That's what you need. And I don't think they've had that. I think they had a day's worth of training is the word I got through the people I know in the military. And that just simply isn't enough.
All I can say is hopefully, I mean, because what we've learned, and I think what the CDC and the CDC and the NIH, right?
Yes.
Here in this country have said is that the WHO protocol that was the basis for the original protocol in dealing with Ebola here in the country was more of a, hey, we're in the bush. This is what you have to do in Africa, and it doesn't work in a highly controlled medical environment. So they're updating that, and that's one of the reasons why those nurses got sick.
Well, let's be honest. The CDC, and I don't like them. I don't trust them very much. But let's face it, a lot of the criticism they're getting is really unfair because this is something that we don't worry about here in the U.S. because up till now, it's been strictly an African problem.
Well, but the point that I was going to make is that hopefully, and this is what we do, we're journalists, we speculate all the time with no evidence or proof or information of any sort other than anecdotal things that we hear from folks. But hopefully, any troops that are deployed to help assist in the effort to quell this outbreak and this epidemic in Liberia, especially, they're going to receive that training on the ground from the WHO officials who can help them employ their particular protocols. I can't imagine a situation where you're going to send a 22-year-old kid into a hospital and say, hey, you need to clean up all of this soiled material here and burn it or autoclave it or whatever you're going to do. Yeah. But we're not going to tell you how, and we're not going to give you a suit. Yeah. We're going to give you a pitchfork and a mask.
Well, but the bottom line is I think we're using the wrong type of, it's just like, using a SEAL to try to take down an airport. We're using the wrong type of troops to try to fight this. I think this is completely wrong to send our troops over there when we should be sending, trained professionals. These troops aren't going over there to shoot Ebola. They're over there to do something else with it.
Yeah, but our troops, the National Guard, and I'm not...
And they're good. They're good, but they're not trained for this.
Well, all I'm saying, and I'm not arguing that point with you. I'm not arguing... I am going to point out that the National Guard does a lot of stuff in a supportive kind of role.
Yes.
Dealing with Ebola is not like sandbagging a flood, but they do that kind of thing. They support the Corps of Engineers.
It's much simpler.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So when we get back, hopefully Sam Clovis will be here. If not, we're going to go over, the advances that ISIS has made and how it's been rejected. And see, now Sam showed up. I got all excited, forgot what I was going to say. We're going to be back right after this break. We might talk a little bit about ISIS, but Sam Clovis is with us now. We'll be back right after this break. We want to thank all of our sponsors, Dr. Lee Heeb, Heeb2014.org, PetrosianAssociates.com, Lubinas Law Firm, Halo Capital, Des Moines Anesthesia. Follow us on Doc and Lefty, Facebook and Twitter. We'll be back right after this break.
I'm Lee Heeb. I'm candidate for Iowa governor. Some of you don't know what a libertarian is, and you think we're kind of crazy and that we wear these things on our head. You know what's crazy? It's crazy to continue to vote for the two big parties who for years have taken special interest funds, have taken that money, have legislated in favor of their special interest buddies at the expense of all of us. You've heard of the great right-wing conspiracy. Let me tell you the great libertarian conspiracy. We want to take over government, shrink government, and leave you alone. When it comes to economic growth, the answer is really not that complicated. If you look around the country, the states that are doing well have no income tax and are deregulated. We, on the other hand, have one of the highest personal income taxes. We have the very top corporate tax in the nation, and we're regulated to death. Did you know that raw milk is outlawed in the state of Iowa? Really, raw milk? I mean, first of all, we're the heartland of rural agriculture. But here's the important point. Will a state who doesn't trust you to choose your milk trust you with buying a weapon? Will a state that doesn't trust you with raw milk trust you to choose your own health care? Will a state that won't trust you with raw milk trust you to educate your children? Am I truly free if I can't decide what to eat, what to drink, as long as I'm not harming another person? As a Navy officer, I took an oath to defend the Constitution. Now, there's a part of the Constitution that says, shall not be infringed. It's the Second Amendment. I have a concealed carry permit, but really, why do I need one? I have the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, our right to carry firearms, is what supports all the other Bill of Rights. In November, have the courage to vote differently. Think about being more attached to your liberty and less attached to your political party.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for the first half hour, and we are very pleased that our second half hour we're going to be the headliner of his whirlwind political tour on October 21st through Des Moines, hitting up a lot of events. We got Sam Clovis running for treasurer, former Senate primary candidate in front of the show back to back. This is the first time this ever happened where we had a guest come back the second week. Usually there's a cooling off period where, hey, we dealt with Doc and Lefty. We're going to give them a month. We're going to see how it sits. Kind of like bad chicken salad. But anyway, so Sam, it's good to see you. What were you off doing today?
Well, I was on a radio show, a local radio show this morning, and had a good hour there. And then Nationwide, the insurance company, did a first ever candidate forum up on the Locust Street Skywalk area.
Oh, sure.
And it was great. Both parties represented a lot of candidates there. And then had a quiet lunch and had a chance to catch up on some things. And then tonight, the big Republican Party of Iowa Reagan dinner, a big annual event, and 650 people tonight at the Embassy Suites. It was quite a gathering.
Well, that's cool. We're glad that you're able to take some time and make some time for us.
This is why I think he came back, is because we fed at the trough of knowledge last week that Sam Clovis. And as he left, I went, Sam, we're starving over here.
Where are
especially
the shovels?
Lefty. Especially Lefty. This guy doesn't know anything. You got to come back, fill him full of knowledge.
And well, the more I know, the more I forget.
Yeah.
And the more I forget, the less I know. So why even try and learn anything in the first place?
Well, and that is a liberal mantra. That's why we have Common Core today. I think that's what it is. So anyway,
somebody made money on that.
So. There's all kinds of David Neffnegger is
right.
I don't. Is he your scheduler?
He's the director of the campaign. He's the manager of the campaign.
Okay, good deal. Because this guy has you everywhere.
Yes, he does.
I mean, he's running you ragged.
Yep.
And
2 weeks.
Is that how long he's been with you?
No. We
right,
came on right after the nomination.
Well, I know the guy. I like him. He's a good guy. But he's got like 50 pictures up and around. He's sending them out on the thing.
Right.
So a guy like that's worth his weight in gold.
Yep.
Good deal.
And he's still getting to enjoy his meal and all the rest of the speeches over at the dinner right now.
I've had the dinner over at the Reagan dinner. They need to rename it something else because Reagan was great, and that dinner,
Well, the special speaker tonight, the keynote is Michael Reagan. So he was.
Oh, that's right.
Tonight,
that's right. Well, hopefully he got a porterhouse or something. So,
so you're saying that the dinner doesn't live up to the reputation that you guys attribute to Ronald Reagan?
Yes. Well, the actual
you want to
dinner,
call it the Eisenhower dinner, maybe?
The people that show up. There's the
Jerry Ford. Jerry Ford dinner.
Well,
we like him.
I can't believe I just said that.
That's okay.
That's what we're here for, to ruin careers.
Somebody will want to tear up my
that's okay.
Because here's the thing. It's a great event. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people show up.
A lot of Republicans
you
there.
meet people.
Man.
I mean, the who's who of the National Party, the state party, everybody's there. And then you sit down to a dry piece of chicken, and overcooked broccoli, and a sliver of what is supposed to be cream cheese pie. I got no idea what it is, but I'm like, I'm a fat guy. I'd eat anything. Well, I don't eat that.
And
so it's like for
$100, you know.
Or if you're a sponsor for $1,000, that's where I would.
Which is so shocking because they treated me really well at the Embassy Suites the last time you and I went.
Oh yeah, the Republicans treat you great. It's
there was no Republicans there except you.
It was just me. What did we do?
I mean, when we were having that meeting with those guys.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I did pay for an $11 cocktail, so maybe that's why they're so
there
nice
you
to
go.
me.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, it's like a Ronald Reagan meet with a Jimmy Carter dinner. That's exactly what it's like.
Hey now. Are you didn't like that?
Bookends. Boy, those are bookends.
You didn't like that chicken malaise?
I'm still suffering from it.
I can't find that in the
it's like Eggs Benedict got that malaise sauce.
Chicken malaise.
That sounds like you catch something.
We are the only show out there that would invite an important candidate on and spend an entire segment, 10 minutes, talking about dinner at the Reagan dinner. I'm telling you what, we haven't learned anything new.
Nope.
Outside the dinner is bad. So
well, before we go to the break, then, or maybe we can we just push two breaks into one. So you are 2 weeks out.
Right.
2 weeks from today is election day.
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
It's going well. I'm very pleased. I think we've accomplished a tremendous amount. I think we're going to have some interesting surprises. One, you're going to ask me as a candidate, and two, you ask me as a political scientist, and you might get two different answers. So.
Well, see. Here's a question that I'm curious about, and you can wear either hat that you want.
Right.
These statewide elections are the big problem with statewide elections in a state like Iowa. It's a small population. It's also spread out, especially like really spread out in the West where we're from, and more low information and low information is kind of a problem here in Iowa, in my opinion.
Right.
When we had a primary, your Senate primary, when 19 people came to my polling place and voted in your Senate primary, I feel like that's a pretty bad problem in this state.
It is. Yeah.
In a statewide election where the name recognition issue for you isn't as big of a deal because no one knows who the treasurer is or what the treasurer does in this state. How do you have a sense of your penetration, your issue penetration with with voters where you can kind of extrapolate from, because you can't be everywhere at once.
No, and they don't do any polling.
That's where I'm getting.
Yeah. And the polling, any polling that is done has no validity because it's all internet polling, and it's like Bill O'Reilly asking a question on his show, and you got 92% and 8%.
I was shocked.
Yeah, so
I was shocked at those big numbers on Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, sure you were.
Yeah. But no, so how were you able to kind of?
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this message. DJ Matty G, you ready to go? Yeah, all right, we'll be back right after the break. We're going to be back with Sam Clovis, going to ask him more interesting questions. And we're going to ask him what he would do if he were in charge of the CDC and what he would do with Ebola. We'll be back right after the break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? You know, sometimes we need to start just not having commercial breaks and just keep the camera rolling the whole time.
Well, Maddie doesn't have a very loud voice. Remember Ryan? The whole windows would shake and we would know. And
well, when you're looking at me, looking in the camera, you know we're about to go. We're about to go off of it. I mean, unscripted shots at a government agency is not outside of Dr. Patrick Petroch's wheelhouse. I'm not trying to suggest that, but I'm trying to facilitate a professional conversation here. Anyway. That being said, trying to think of something really unprofessional I could ask you, Sam. But no, so we were talking about like kind of the polling. How do you as a candidate have a sense of where you are, aside from just shoe leather on the campaign trail?
We do a lot of I have a guy working for me that does a lot of is very techie, and we do a lot of micro targeting, and so we're able to see the number of hits that we get. And we know how we're rolling through those. Those are very important. I had no idea that you could get, and we know exactly what demographic we're going after. We know exactly. So we have a very good idea there. The other thing is that we see, just on a name recognition aspect of us, that we have done extremely well inside the Republican Party. I'm well known inside the Republican Party. That's huge in this election, this cycle. It may not be true all the time, but this cycle, that's critical, because that means Republicans are going to, those that come out and vote, they're probably going to vote for me. Where we probably, and I think because of the Senate race and because of all of the things that have gone into it with that, and then how I came to be the candidate for the treasurer, there's kind of mythic aspects of that. That's helped a lot too. But I do think that from a name recognition perspective, being from not ever having run for office before, I think I'm doing very well. In fact, we're up on radio all over the state. Every zip code is covered in radio, and we're up in television on every major market now. And my opponent is not. And so that helps me immensely. And I think that's a significant issue, just to answer your question.
That gives me another thought, though. So, because he has been consistently reelected year after year after year after year, meaning that sometimes I would assume sometimes it's been unopposed. A few elections.
In 2006, he was unopposed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means challengers to the throne have gotten the brush off. What makes your candidacy either similar or different to all those other failed attempts to unseat
Nothing
him?
against the other candidates, but one is I think that I had my credentials, I think is really, I have a story, and I think people really, it's a compelling story when you think about all that I've done and accomplished in my life. My education has been constantly achieving throughout my life. So I think from that aspect, my story is very good. I think some of the things that I brought up from a platform perspective, have been interesting, because a lot of people, when you start talking about unfunded liabilities and pension programs, their eyebrows go up because they don't know. And see, this has been one of the problems. People don't know what's going on with that money, and I think this is really. And the other thing is that one of the reasons that my opponent has had success is because he has been electioneering, or using his public service announcements as electioneering things because he gets up and talks about the 529 program, or he talks about the Iowa treasure hunt, or he's up talking about IPER's contributions, and so he uses PSAs as a way to keep his name out in front, and so and you can see the bicycles and all that. So I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying that is a very clear tactic that he had. Well, we have kept him off the air this year with all those public service announcements, and that has changed the dynamics of this race considerably. We also have, I think, some external dynamics to my race, external being the Terry Branstad, Jack Hatch race, which I think is going to be very significant. I mean, there's going to be a large delta there. If the delta is large enough, there just won't be enough crossover votes available to go to a Democrat in this race, and I'll have a chance to overcome some of that crossover voting. The other thing is, if Joni has a big run and she gets some daylight between her and Bruce Braley before Election Day, I think her coattails, frankly, will be longer than Terry Branstad's.
Well, and that's interesting you say that. I think that in response, I think that you're right to think that way, given that. Well, given that Branstad, the Republicans, he's got such a wide lead.
Right.
I can see a large chunk of the Republican base saying, "Terry, you got this. We're not worried about you.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get too up in arms about coming out to vote. We're not gonna get too excited about it.
Yeah, harvest is over. I'm going to take a vacation.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Now that could hurt Joni Ernst a little bit, but I don't think enough, especially in Northwest Iowa.
I also think though, if Joni, as we see and every day, it's up for grabs. I mean, let's be honest.
We just talked about earlier in the show, and I'll bring that up.
But if she can get some daylight, that means people are going to come out to vote for her. That means they are likely going to vote for Branstad. They are likely going to vote for other Republicans. I think it's going to be tough for a Democrat, even a long-standing Democrat, to overcome that, because there won't be enough crossover votes available.
Let me ask. We have a political science, a guy with a political science. I'm going to give you a doctorate.
I do have a doctorate.
A doctorate. Okay, I don't have to give it to you. You already have it. Good. I couldn't remember. I didn't know if it was a doctor in political science or doctor in economics.
Public administration.
Public administration, because we just
perfect.
we had this chat just a second ago, but a guy with your credentials to kind of answer this question. We had a couple of polls came out just recently. The Quinnipiac poll, NBC, I think Marist. Usually it's NBC Wall Street Journal, but I think they got a different partner now. Come out. Quinnipiac showed that independents are breaking for Braley. NBC comes out and says independents are breaking for Joni. Right? So what does that, as a political scientist, what does that tell you?
I would say that it depends on the question that was asked. I mean, really, if you go to the internals, and we don't, I mean, a lot of people don't. We do. I mean, we're nerdy. I mean, when it comes to that. In fact, today, I had a very quiet period today, and so I got on my iPad and I started crunching numbers, and I get real nerdy. I can dig deep on the statistics, and to me, what I'm seeing, and again, it's tough being a candidate and then being objective too. What I'm seeing, though, I think I am seeing as a political scientist, I am seeing this break to the right. And I think it's breaking about 2-1 is what I'm seeing. So, and it could be for any number of issues. And it could be Joni's likability is more than Bruce Braley's. Joni
fiscal conservatives,
I think is probably in there as much. Joni in her campaign hasn't emphasized social issues very much. So we haven't had the big scare off and all that. She's still, I mean, she's taken her stances on those, but it hasn't been an issue in this campaign. So I do think that what we're seeing, and again, I'm guessing. I mean, I'm guessing just on what I see, but the educated guess in me says that I think they're breaking more to the right than to the left.
All right. We're going to be back right after this break. We want to say thanks to Sam Clovis for hustling over here, missing that excellent dinner over there that was, chicken is always good and good for you.
And I get home 2 hours earlier.
Yeah, there you go. And so we want to thank him for coming in. We'll be back after this break to talk more with Sam Clovis. We want to thank our sponsors, Dr. Lee Heeb at Heeb2014.org, Petrosian Associates, Lubinas Law Firm, Halo Capital, Des Moines Anesthesia PC at 515-474-6442. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and go check us out on docandlefty.com. We'll be back right after this break.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Well, hey, everybody, thanks for sticking around. I don't know what happened there, but that's
we
okay.
were giving Maddie a compliment and went to her head.
No, that's I would say it's my fault. I'm usually the guy that pays attention. I'll tell you guys a story off the air, but I'm always the guy that's got to pay attention to things like that, even going back to college. And maybe some of our listeners can extrapolate from my very overly suggestive gestures why I had to be that guy.
Well, because you're just continuing a long liberal tradition. Started with JFK and lately with the.
I have no idea what you're talking.
You do.
Let's not. I'm glad that my fiance doesn't listen to this because I don't want to know where you're going with that.
She should listen to it. She'd find out a lot of good information.
She does not, and you know why? She doesn't like me that much. She thinks you're great. Anyway, that's all the top of the show kind of stuff.
I want to ask Sam a couple of questions.
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
go for it.
Now, there is a poll back in August that shows you trailing. It's Michael Fitzgerald, right?
Right.
Isn't he? Trailing Michael Fitzgerald by a sizable margin. I think
13.
Yeah. And
that was August.
That was August. I have seen just very general polls out there that say that you have closed the gap significantly. People have also been talking about, just like what you said, you're blanketing the airwaves, and Fitzgerald is nowhere to be seen. A couple of the operatives that I talked to on the other side say that he seems to be rather shell-shocked, and not necessarily him, but his staff, but his campaign staff. And I believe you have also raised close to $800,000.
No, not even close to that.
See, that's what I was reading earlier today.
No, we have raised enough. You know, you never raise what you want, but you raise what you know.
Well, when I was the thing is I didn't have time to verify my sources because occasionally I work during the day. But a couple of my sources were bouncing that number around, and I thought to myself, well, holy cow! If you're raising that kind of money, game over. So
no, if we had raised that kind of money, we would have been competing with the federal.
You wouldn't be
candidates.
on my show.
No, well, we'd be competing with the federal candidates for airtime, and we can't do that. I mean, we just don't have that kind of money.
You bet. So, but you've closed that gap significantly.
Yeah.
Now, are you at liberty to reveal your own internal polling numbers or no?
Well, I'll just put it this way: it's we're cautiously optimistic.
All right, good deal. That's always a positive sign, and it's good to see you smile over there. I wish that's what we need to do. Take that picture he just had with that smile. That needs to be your campaign poster. So now you're doing a lot of outreach. Are you reaching any of the independents at this point? Because we talked about how they're kind of swinging our way.
Yeah, I think so, and I think a lot of it has to do with the earned media. Because I'm really comfortable on radio, as a lot of people. Maybe I have a self-inflated view of myself, but but I feel pretty comfortable on the radio. So anytime I can get on the radio with anybody, I feel good about that, and that's earned media, and that penetrates a lot of people because that goes to not only a lot of conservatives, but a lot of independents listen, and a lot of Democrats listen.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Democrats out there that I think that I don't know that we would be able to harvest a great number of those. But there are still some blue dog Democrats around, and I think that's I think they'll take a look at where we are today, and they're like a lot of Republicans that are disgusted with their party. The Democrats are disgusted with some of the Democrats are disgusted with theirs, and I think this is one of the reasons we've seen such a huge uptick in independents in the state, is because they're tired of both parties.
Now, one of the things I noticed that's made news is a couple of times Obama has shown up to speak for a candidate or is at a fundraiser, and suddenly everybody gets up and leaves when he starts to talk. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that? What's your opinion about that?
I think he's over, and I do think that is a phenomenon that occurs with presidents that are coming into their final 2 years if they've been on an 8-year ban.
Yep. That happened with Bush.
It's pretty. I mean, I would say the same thing. I mean, even Ronald Reagan's just incredible personality, but I think that you take a look at Bush, and Clinton was the same. Clinton was he did not have near the cachet at the end of his run.
Not.
He's still he was popular.
Yes,
but he was not as influential.
Not in the party. In 1998, Bill Clinton was the only president in recent memory who didn't have didn't lose a House of Congress, basically.
Right.
You know, Democrats got elected.
He didn't have it.
But the institute. Right, but
Yeah,
no,
because-
well, no, I know that, but he
because
didn't
it's easy to
he didn't
not
lose more.
He didn't lose more. They had
yeah.
more Democrats elected than Republicans, and that's like the only time that's ever happened.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me. But certainly within the party, he was very unpopular, and Al Gore did as much to run away from him as he possibly could.
Yeah.
The 2000 election was my first election that I was able to vote for, and I just remember thinking to myself, because becoming politically active in that particular time, thinking to myself, boy, it's a good thing that he's staying away from Clinton. And then a couple of years later thinking, boy, I wish that he'd brought Clinton into this thing because he would have maybe done a better job. And it feels like to me that the Democrats do this more often. The Republicans kind of stayed away from George Bush in that 2008 election, but that's because George Bush was staying away himself.
Yeah.
He knew he was unpopular. He was staying out of things, and there were enough folks that were still kind of getting over those last 2 years, Medicare, Katrina, all the stuff that they were hammering him with, and he kind of took himself out of the picture. But it feels like Democrats in these situations, you have candidates for office refusing. We can make jokes about voting for the president, but you have the Senate candidate in Kentucky refusing to admit that she voted for the guy in her own party. I don't understand that.
Three Senate candidates.
Yeah, who refuse to.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it. Okay, fine. Everybody knows you voted for him.
Why didn't you say it?
Why wouldn't you say it?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make it. If I was running for office and the president in my party is unpopular like this president has been, I'd still say, of course I did. Who else would I vote for?
Do you think that's because that not only in Iowa but in general, independence is starting to break toward the Republican Party?
Yeah, I think that the polling nationally says that it's about a 7 to 3 the break, and that's national. And the Republican Party, the generic ballot is running at about a +6 right now, may even be more. And we, in 94, we were a -2 3 days before the election, and we won 60 seats. And so I think that, we're looking at, if we're running a +6 in the generic ballot or +8, it could be really, really something. I think that, and I think in Iowa in particular, the dynamics of this race, and every race is different. Every state's different. I don't think you can generalize, and this is one of the things I try to tell people. You cannot generalize about elections nationally. You can talk about your state because you know your state. I think in Iowa we could see something very significant on election night as far as the Republican Party goes.
And the only reason that I would disagree with that is that not the generic poll, as opposed to Democrats, is high, and yet the favorability of the generic Republican is so low.
You make a good point.
And I can't argue that. And I'm not arguing that means the Democrats are better,
right?
Because the Democrats are low too,
pretty low.
but it just doesn't. It's so odd to me. It's so odd to me that we are now in a political environment in this country where the two major political parties have no credibility with American people, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
There's no faith that they can solve any kind of problems whatsoever because they haven't been. And it doesn't matter who you lay the blame with. We have adults that need to get this stuff done. And yet you have people because of the electoral system we have, swinging between one or the other. No one wants to vote for anybody.
Right.
How do we not have any kind of viable third-party candidate that just takes the reins?
Well, it's interesting because there was an article today in one of the papers one of the blogs that I looked at that talked about that very issue. Mm-hmm. That this could be we may be starting to see a bottom-up revolution finally, and we may be looking at either a Whig Republican metamorphosis, or we may be seeing something
I think it's more likely on the conservative side because the conservatives
absolutely.
are the ones who are angry.
Oh, absolutely. This right now, the feud is between big government, small government people. That's where the feud.
We want to thank Sam Clovis for coming in.
Oh, it's an honor, and thank you.
You're quite welcome. You are now a friend of the show officially.
Well,
I don't know if that's going to help you. But,
I'm honored.
All right. But any last words for our listeners tonight from you?
Get out and vote. I don't care what party you are. I don't care who you are. Get out and vote. Exercise your right as an American citizen. If you are a citizen, get out and vote. You have to do this. It is, you have an obligation to be aware of what's going on. So vote. Please vote.
All right. So are we going to see Sam Clovis for governor in 2018?
Let's get me elected to treasurer before we do anything.
I'm just trying to create some controversy because that's how you get ratings.
Oh my word!
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Wait till Kim Reynolds hears that. So yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Well, thanks Sam for coming in. We appreciate all of our listeners because listening to me I know is great. Listening to Lefty, not so much. So we want to thank everybody out there. We'll be back next week. Please hit docandlefty.com. Sam, good luck on that election.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. It's been an honor to be here.
Hey, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Love both of them.